Again, I'm in Isaiah 51. I hope to look at Isaiah 51 and 52. I don't know how many of you have dreams that make you nervous, but I'll just make this statement. Dreams while I am asleep can be very unnerving. You wake up and try to figure out if that really happened to you or not. My least favorite personally is the feeling of being chased. And I don't know what happens to you in your dreams. In my dreams, when I'm having such a thing, it's like you can't get your legs to move. It's like they're frozen and the guy keeps chasing you, the bear's after you, and you're trying, and it's like your feet are glued to the floor because your brother has had a sense of humor or something. And it's just, and then you wake up huffing and puffing, and your wife's looking at you like, what's going on? And you don't know if you want to tell her that you were scared to death of something that's not in the room. But perhaps worse than waking up and then having the relief, at least in my case, of realizing that it was just a dream, is when you come in contact with an individual who actually is awake and just appears to be dreaming. And let me give you, for instance, I'll pick on my children. Unfortunately, it's not just a child problem, but there are times that, it's like they're walking around in a daze. And so at our house, we have some phrases that come up more frequently than they would like to admit. Earth to Amy. What does that mean? Amy, we don't know where you're at, but you're going to want to come down here on earth because you're about to walk into a wall. Okay, type of an attitude. Or, Anna, wake up. Because they're awake as far as their eyes are moving, their body's moving, but their brain is not engaged. Let me give you a little bit different story. Again, as I tried to think of times that we have given such lectures, we'll go back a number of years to when Will Fultz was about 8 years old. And we were doing, as the Shaws and the Fultzes that day, what we liked to do, which was play baseball. And Will Fultz decided he was going to be a third baseman that day. And so he was over there by third base, and he was getting bored because, baseball is not always the most aggressive sport in the world. There are times of some laxness, and you know what's really fun when you're 8 years old is to build sandcastles by third base. And so he was over there, and he was piling up little rocks, and so his father lovingly turned to him and said, Will, one of these moments, a ball's going to come your way, you're going to want to pay attention. And being an all-knowing young man, he laughed, and I can get up, and I will be ready for anything that comes my way, Dad, don't worry. Sure enough, I believe I was the next person to bat. I could be wrong on who was batting, but I believe it was me. And so I got up to bat, and unintentionally, I want to make sure this is clear, just so he does not come after me afterwards, because he's a lot bigger now than he was then. Unintentionally, I hit the ball. I'm a pull hitter, and I happened to pull the ball down the third base line. To Will's benefit, he was not completely sleeping. He did see the ball was coming. And so he hopped up and then reached down to grab his glove, and the grounder popped him right in the chin. He laid down, just so you know, I got an infield home run because, that's just how life went. But after I scored, we turned to him, being me, and his dad just kept saying, Will, I told you, you need to pay attention. Anywhere on the field, the ball can show up. Isaiah is coming to a nation that is in sin. And Isaiah is coming to them, telling them, pay attention, or the calamity that is coming will not be averted. It will not. You will not see it coming. It will get you, and there's a way to avoid it if you would just wake up. And so as we look at these two chapters, my goal is that we would be challenged with wake up. Be alert. Recognize the danger. To open up, I'd like to read Isaiah 51, verses 1 through 8. It says this. Hearken to me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek the Lord. Look unto the rock whence ye are hewn, and to the hole of the pit whence ye are digged. Look unto Abraham your father, and unto Sarah that bare you. I called him alone, and blessed him, and increased him. For the Lord shall comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places. And he will make her wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness shall be found therein, thanksgiving and the voice of melody. Hearken unto me, my people, and give ear unto me, O my nation. For a law shall proceed from me, and I will make my judgment to rest for a light of the people. My righteousness is near, my salvation is gone forth, and mine arm shall judge the people. The isles shall wait upon me, and on mine arm shall they trust. Lift up your eyes to the heavens, and look upon the earth beneath. For the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment. And they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished. Hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law. Fear ye not the reproach of men, neither be ye afraid of their revilings. For the moth shall eat them up like a garment, and the worm shall eat them like wool. But my righteousness shall be forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. Okay, so first thing Isaiah is going to point to them is listen up, or 3 times he says hearken in the King James. Listen up. God is a help to the righteous. This is verses 1 through 3. This is a call to people who want to be righteous. If you want to be righteous, you better listen up. And then he gives them an illustration of a group of a person or a couple that listened up. He says, remember Abraham and Sarah? A couple that could not have children? They listened up, they heeded God, and God gave them one son. And again, just for my own imagination, as I realize the promise God gave to Abraham, that he would make of him a great nation, and I have one kid, I'm recognizing this is going to take a while. I would personally, if I got into my 90s and didn't have that child yet, I would start to question. But Abraham believed God, Hebrews tells us, and it was accounted unto him for righteousness. God did make of Abraham a great nation. And the people Isaiah is talking to are the result of Abraham and Sarah heeding God's call. God is calling the Jews, and he's calling them to seek him that he might make them a righteous nation. When people seek God, they find comfort. Okay, what is seeking God? Let me make sure that we, because it's real easy to throw out terms, but I want to make sure that we don't just say, oh yeah, I should seek God. What does it mean to seek God? Okay, seeking God means I want to get to know him. Seeking God means I not only want to get to know him, I want to know what he expects. And then when I know him and I know what he expects, seeking God means obeying him. Again, we could put this in more of a physical realm. When I was 5 years old, at my mother's strong encouragement, I started to learn a little bit about the piano. Now, it quickly became apparent that I wasn't willing to put in the effort required to play well. And so after a year, I managed to talk my mother out of such endeavors. And so, if you say find middle C, I could walk over there and find it. But other than that, it would be a struggle. But those of you that want to learn or have learned to play the piano, what does that take? Well, the first thing you got to know is, what is a piano? I like classical music, and sometimes there are just certain instruments that, as I watch orchestral pieces, I think, what is that? I mean, the first time I saw an oboe, you look at an oboe, if you know what that is, and you think, I mean, who gets up in the morning and says, you know what, I'd like to learn how to play that thing, or even came up with making it? You're looking and go, that thing's weird. You know what, you're never going to be able to play the oboe unless you know what it is. So in order to play the piano, first thing you have to know, well, what is a piano? Well, it's got a lot of black and white things on it. Really, what is it? See, the first thing you have to know is what it is. You'd have to learn what it does. What happens if you hit the keys? And you'd have to learn how music is written. Or if you're one of those lucky people that can play by ear. I always wondered how you did that, but again, that's another subject. And then it takes something beyond that. You not only have to learn about it, it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice. Because if you really want to be able to do it, you're going to have to take the time. For me, I was not willing to take the time. Now, my dad was out in the yard, and he was holding this rubber ball, and I thought, you know what, I'd like to learn what that is. So I walked out, I found out it's a basketball. I found out when you drop it, it bounces. And that the goal was to get that basketball through this metal rim, and I thought that I could devote my life to. What is my point? When I sought how to play basketball, I spent the hours learning the trade. Now, I never managed to go professional. Something about being 5'10", 240 pounds made that a little bit hard. But I love the game. And because I enjoy the game, I learned about it. I continue to learn about it. I continue to practice because I enjoy it. If I want to seek God, I've got to learn about Him. I've got to understand Him. I've got to obey Him and practice what I know. Isaiah is calling the nation of Israel to seek their God. And as I make those statements, again, just in my own mind, I have to stop and say, wait a second. Don't you expect people who are the children of God to seek Him? I mean, that should be expected. But let's just have a stop of reality and be honest that, you know what? I got saved 30 years ago. But there are still times that I find it difficult, I get lazy, and the temptation to stop seeking Him is there. The nation of Israel had been the people of God for thousands of years at this point. And God is calling to them, not thousands, thousand. Should you make that close to the singular? God is calling them. He's saying, you have forgotten me. Listen up. Hearken. Seek me again. Again, we could look at it as a nation of America. You could say we used to be a Christian nation. I don't think you could say that at this point. But I don't think the parallel is exact. Let's look at this as an individual and say, if you want to be righteous, you need to seek God. When you seek Him, you find comfort. You find blessing. When you don't seek Him, hearken, there's a warning. Which is what Isaiah is trying to get across. So secondly, verses 4 to 6, listen up, judgment is coming. The righteous God is near. Okay, again, just what is the difference that when you recognize God is near? Let me pick on my children again. They don't mind. At this time I won't pick a particular one, just children in general. When you put a child to bed and they think their dad is standing right outside the door, are they loud? Now, maybe your children are. My children are very quiet. You know, if they still see me or they think they see me standing outside the door, that room is still. What happens if they think I'm downstairs getting a bowl of ice cream? Suddenly the stillness, and they haven't figured out yet that like you can hear them, but suddenly the stillness is not quite as still. And suddenly, you hear the patter of little feet. What happened? They think their dad is away. Now, on a couple of occasions, because because they're dumb, I've gotten close to them again. And suddenly their dad appears. And the terror